Welcome. This is the Domain Name Law Show. We're here every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We talk about domain name legal news. Sometimes we'll touch on industry topics. We always review some recent UDRP decisions. That's a domain dispute. There's three hosts of this show. My name is Todd Ryan. My co-hosts are David Michaels and Jeff Neuman. I'd like to start off by saying hello to my co-host. Hey, David, how's everything going?
It's all right.
Not too
Weather's
great, huh?
good.
Just all right. Yeah, I sold a name. It looks like I sold a name 7CE, still waiting on the payment. Had it priced at 3,800 and they sold it for 2,900 according to my GoDaddy or my Afternic rep. See if they pay. I haven't heard any more since Friday. I think it was Friday night. Um, yeah, I have to check on that. But yeah, so the last three or four names I've sold were three character names. And no reason, don't know what they mean. I haven't checked to see if this particular one has meaning, but I picked them up because just short keystrokes. And when you search and see what does that mean, usually it doesn't give you anything that's you think you can bank on. But yeah, so any activity in the domain name selling world, David?
Yeah, actually, sold a couple of names recently. So one, let's see, Hest on April 22, Hest.ca. Uh, Before that, it was Canopy.ca on March 23rd. So yeah, I guess one a month. It seems to be the trend so far.
I couldn't complain any sales. So you said test, Test?
No, Hest,
Oh,
Hest.
oh,
Sounds like a
Hest.
last name or something.
I gotcha. And Hest, and the other one was Canopy, Canopy.
With an I at the end, Canopy with an I.
Jeez, you can't complain on those. But both .cas.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah,
what
yeah.
were they? 1,500, 2,000? What'd you sell them for?
No, both were at 3,500 US.
Jeez, I mean that's great. I just have a tough time with making any
Well,
transactions. Yeah.
the Afternic commission is 25%, and on the Hess name, I had to split it with somebody else because I actually dropped the name a few months ago, and somebody else picked it up. But he had his who is open. I contacted him, and he was cool about it. And he said, "Okay." He handed me the name, and then I got the money from Afternic, and I gave him half.
Well, so you drop that's free money, I guess, even if it's just a grand or whatever you split it with them. But the point is, uh, smart move. A lot of us have had sales after, oh, I don't own that name anymore, and you reach out. Most people aren't as upfront as you, saying, "Hey, I sold this name. You want to split it?" Most people are like, they try to buy it, they pull some bullshit, and then the person never wants to sell it to them anyway because they know it seems suspect. But no, congratulations. Listen, just getting back. A lot of people are talking about selling names for $4.99, $9.99. I think just moving names. It's like having a store and you want to sell some low price product just to get the cash register making noise. Um, so I think that I didn't renew about 18, 20 names this past month, and I listed them on not renewing. I saw a name on not renewing. Somebody bought last month for $99. Room Pros, ROOMPROS.com, 22-year-old name. I like those kind of names. What do you think about that, David? Roompros.com for 99 bucks.
So you bought it for $99. That's actually not bad, but I wouldn't pay that for that name. That's kind of like a hand wedge name.
Yeah,
And maybe, what do you think you'll get for it? 2,000?
maybe, but I mean, I don't know. Those are the kind of names I like for, you're right, for hand reg fee. And for 99 bucks, I probably would have picked it up even for that, only because um, with Airbnb and just people, basically looking for rooms, when there's hotel rooms or rooms to rent, or more remodeling a room. I don't know. Room Pros, just as a domainer, I've always liked the extension PROS. Um, but anyway, yeah. So, and the reason why when I'm dropping the names, at least now send them over to not renewing. I'm not renewing them. Anybody want them? I think I've done 3 transactions there. I think 4 now actually. But yeah, stuff I was going to take the trash out, and on the way out somebody picks it up. So no complaints. Yeah. Well, congratulations on the couple sales you had. Yeah, I finally had one. On today's show, if anybody wants to check out the outline, you can go to dnlshow.com/outline. Basically, there was some legal news I saw. I'm going to skip over it. I wanted to say quickly, yeah, Jeff was on a call with him this morning. We're busy. He is so busy. And I mean, I'm busy with him, but we're going to continue doing this show. He is having his 24th wedding anniversary. He told David and I, so he was going to spend this afternoon, evening with his wife. I know this afternoon he's got some work to do, and then he's going out tonight. So that's why he couldn't join us. And then next week, he's an expert witness in a case. He's going to be in Gibraltar. So he's traveling all week. I'm assuming he's not going to be here for the show next week. But we, as you know, we're dealing with a lot of companies that are applying for their GTLD and ICANN's next round. And boy, is heating up right now. The application window's open. I'll always just say, in case someone's listening on replay, reach out to us at jjnsolutions.com. You can just send me an email, Todd, TODD, at jjnsolutions.com. I'm working with Jeff full time now. And, whether it's a domain dispute, just a simple UDRP, or you have a big lawsuit, or you need other legal help with regards to intellectual property, you can certainly reach out to us. But the application window for the next round is open, and it really gives you no advantage if you submit your application today or August 1st, meaning you want to make sure your application is a strong application. You've included everything needed, depending on if you're, a brand or a community, or just, applying for an open TLD. But so you still got plenty of time, and we're noticing a lot of folks are just now coming aboard with us. We had some very organized clients who were, been around for the last year, and then some. It's like a rush. People were just waiting around, and it is unique because they're probably going to not be, obviously, who's going to wait for the next time. It could be 13, 15 years down the road. And same if you're a registry service provider, or you're wanting to be. Now that window is open again. So if you're wanting to apply to be an RSP, reach out to us to tell you what's going on there. All right, the 4 cases that we're going to take care of today are, well, the first one is nothing.ae. So we're going to jump right in. And David, I'm glad you brought this one to my attention. I did see it, and then I didn't read the case until after you made some comments about it. But I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about the facts of the case. If you know anything about who was the complainant, who was the respondent, and really just what happened with this, single word. It's a dictionary word, nothing.ae. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the complaint is Nothing Technology based out of the UK. Their website is actually nothing.tech, which is rare for an e-commerce business to run off a .tech name, but supposedly they're big. You go to their website and they offer um, country-specific websites for sales across Europe. And it looks like they even got a trademark registration at UAE. Now, the domain name that this UDRP is about is nothing.ae, and AE is for the UAE. And so they got their trademark registration in 2021. I don't think the UAE registration database is available online, so I don't think it's easy to check and see unless you have the certificate. So the respondent registered nothing.ae in August of 2022 and redirected it to his electronic site, which is a bigger site selling a lot more stuff between Chinese cell phones and those balance wheels that take you around. What do you call those things again? Uh, forgot.
Oh, those segways,
Anyway, people were getting hurt on those.
Segway.
Well, not Segway, cheap things that people, they're scooters, little scooters, just put between your legs. They're, I
Oh,
guess, they're mini Segways, but they're not Segway brand. They're just Chinese versions. So they actually do have something between your legs. So that's interesting. Um,
reach
yeah,
down
so it seems to be a
between your
bigger
legs.
site, and the respondent is based in Azerbaijan. So he's outside of Europe, and the complainant first got their European trademark in 2020, and that's when they found it. So it's not like it's a big brand. I don't think anybody knew about it. They don't actually have a big presence. But anyway, they wanted this .ae domain name, and they filed the UDRP against it. The owner was forwarding it to his other site, which is MIMLON, so mimlon.com. And yeah, so that wasn't considered legitimate to some extent, but then the bad faith was hinging around the $10,000 demand for, hey, you want this domain name? Give me $10,000 and some free product. And that was interpreted by the panelists as being bad faith. And that's, it's a valuable domain name. It's valuable beyond the trademark value. So I don't think that was a huge ask. What do you think?
Now I look at it closer. So, our friend of the show, Igor, represented the complainant in this case, and many times we'll have Igor in here. He represents the complainant sometimes, the respondent sometimes. He's Igor's a panelist too. So we sometimes will make the decision. But so in this case, nothing.ae is the domain name. Nothing Technology, as David mentioned, out of the UK, was represented by Igor, and this respondent was out of, and I thought this was interesting, Azerbaijan. Okay, so the reason I bring that up is because this respondent also owned nothing.az, right? So he owned nothing.az, nothing.ae, and he had them forwarded to his website, MIMELALON, like David said. And on that website, it had like links to, since this complainant, Nothing Technologies makes smartphones and audio headsets and wireless headsets and stuff like that. They've grown to be a big company, but started in 2020. This guy bought these domains in 2022. Did he know about them? Well, the panelist, who's Assen, Assen, Alexiev, said, well, he didn't answer, so he didn't say, or he did answer. I'm sorry, he did answer, but he didn't answer the question, why did you register nothing, even if it's a dictionary word? But what was your plan to do with it? Because the panelist made I thought, a smart out comment. It wasn't meant to be, but he is. You're not doing nothing with him. You're doing something with him. You got it pointed to, a web page that's offering products that are similar to this complainant, and you registered it a couple years after they started doing business. So, why did you register nothing? What was your plan with it? And the respondent answered, but didn't answer the question. So if you are going to respond to a UDRP, yeah, panelists always like to know, so why'd you get it? And they usually can see through, the smart panelists can see through when you're full of crap saying, I was going to set up a fan site or something bullshit, and you don't take any action toward it. But so this person registered nothing.ae and nothing.az, had them both pointed to a PPC page of his that he also owned. And the panelist said, okay, you answered, but you didn't tell us why you got those names, even though they're dictionary words. What were you going to do with them? And when the person reached out to you at the end of 2025, early 2026, was just a couple months there, November to January, just 6 months ago. The respondent wanted $10,000 for the domain, which is more than reasonable. He said, we've owned them for a few years. Really just wanted the time and money spent with these names. But the panel just didn't believe that the respondent didn't know of the complainant when he got it. So he said, you haven't really done anything with these that make them legitimate. So no bona fide use. And then I think that you did know about them, because otherwise, why would you point to, whether he did it intentionally or not, why would you have links up there that were similar? to the complainant. But long story short is, yeah, so the domain was transferred away. Nothing.ae was transferred to the complainant. I'll be sure and say when I talk with Igor, congratulations. Didn't even
There
realize.
wasn't any PPC on it. There's no allegation of PPC or pay-per-click on the decision. And the decision actually says it was forwarded to Mimalon or MyMalon. So that's a better, more robust e-commerce website with real products on like a real selection of products, not just a couple of things
Okay,
that
so it
nothing
wasn't,
dot
but it was.
tech has.
I'm sorry, it was some various electronic devices, right? So I got you. It was real products. It wasn't PPC. My mistake there.
Right.
So did he offer anything that was from that complainant? Because I think he mentioned that he
Um,
said, I don't offer any counterfeit. It's only, legitimate stuff, real stuff from the real manufacturer. I just,
yeah, but no, it's not. The complaint does not have their own branded stuff. If you go to the complaint's website, they don't have their own stuff. They just get, they sell Chinese phones. Like, um, they have phone A Pro. Like, these are generic phones. There's nothing here that's branded in any way, shape, or form.
David's talking about nothing.tech. That's the complainant in this case. So nothing.ae was the disputed name, and they went after it, and they won. So it's our first case for today. Nothing.ae was the disputed domain name, and the complainant won. In that case, the respondent did answer. Like I said, they just didn't like the 10,000. When you're a domain investor, you need to be clear. I'm a domain investor. I wanted 10,000 for the name. In the meantime, I was doing this with it. You really need to have answers. Some panelists do consider domain investing a legitimate business, but you got to be upfront about it. And he didn't say much other than just offering it for 10 grand, saying, he didn't explain why that was consistent with the expenses that he had or anything like that, because the panelists took it as, yeah, we agree with the complainant. It's much more than your out-of-pocket cost, so we're going to hold that against you, not, consider it legitimate. All right, the second case we're going to go to is, Buzz Aldrin. BUZZALDRIN.com. I love these names last week. Shirley Jones. I think she won her case, right? Didn't Shirley Jones win her case last week? This one,
Sure, she sure did. 94-year-old Shirley Jones won her case, and Buzz Aldrin is 96 years old,
he
born
won
in
his case too.
1930.
But David, tell him about this name, BUZZ, his name basically. Tell him what happened with it.
Yeah, Buzz Aldrin. So it's sold on GoDaddy auctions in January for $35,500 in a hotly contested auction. There are a lot of people who wanted that name. Do you know why? The SEO value. It had a DR or has a DR rating of 74, has at least 26.eu, sorry, .edu links, backlinks, and 2.gov backlinks. It's like in the top 10% of all website or domain rankings in the world. So a lot of people wanted this domain name. The problem was what he did with the landing page. He went probably to archive.org, saw what it looked like before, and just made a mimic of the old website based on the archive.org cache. And the links on there, like Contact Buzz, were inoperable. They just forwarded back to the homepage. So he wasn't doing anything with it. And this is a common ploy used by SEO gurus who they'll buy these expensive domain names and then reconstitute the old websites as much as possible, just so that Google thinks, okay, it's still the same owner and going to still give the same domain rank to this domain name. But if you're supposed to do the changes within a week or two, or like minimum, if you waited more than a month, is probably already too late in this case. The UDRP complaint was filed a couple of months later, and you know, he had that website that was impersonating Buzz Aldrin, and that was a problem. That was a really hard thing to get around. Had he put up a fan site with NASA content on there, he might have survived this, even with Well, who was the panelist? It was Dawn Osborne, Ms. Transfer. She transfers almost every particular UDRP complaint that comes to her desk. So it would be a hard sell, but at least if he replied, it would not go to her. And so that's another reason to reply. If you reply, Dawn Osborne usually will not get your case. It'll go to somebody more experienced who's more fair. But that said, this guy should have, he spent 35,500 in this name. He should have hired a UDRP attorney to tell him what is the best way to maintain the SEO value, and what should I do with it in the meantime while I'm waiting for this Google update. And he didn't do that. He should at least responded. What do you think?
Yeah, the registrant paid 35,500 in January. So Buzz Aldrin registered this name in 1998. So this guy's owned it the whole time. He dropped it accidentally, and we hear about this all the time. He dropped it. It went to GoDaddy auction. This person out of Turkey bought it for 35,500. I'd like to hear from that person just to know. Okay, so do you buy a lot of names for a lot of money like this? You see them at the auctions as soon as they have these great, great number of backlinks and all this, you know, SEO traffic. I mean, I guess I don't know, but I mean, I'd like to know. So you spent that much, but yet did you not get the UDRP complaint, the notice? You didn't respond. So, you know, anyway, and you mentioned Don Osborne, well known. I've said it. I'll say it one more time. Way back when Ice-T went after Ice-T, ICET.com. We got Don Osborne as the panelist. We were the complainant. She transferred the name to Ice, and he really didn't have rights to it. Meaning, of course, he goes by Ice-T, but Ice-T, there's a lot of people who, Nestle's was more popular with a large segment of the population than Ice-T, body count. So anyway, but Don Osborne, she, we call her, a brand attorney, meaning she really sides with the brands in most cases. And there's another case in here that Steve Levy decided on that I think made a good decision. But still, there's some attorneys, some panelists feel like, listen, I think that this UDRP was set up to protect the brands. So unless a respondent comes in here and really has a strong case, shows legitimate use, and doesn't no bullshit, I'm going to transfer the name. So I always think that the finger is touching the scale of the brand in most UDRPs, because it was basically set up to protect brands from cyber squatters. So as soon as there's a case filed, people, many times think, oh, a cyber squatting case, a domain dispute. And if it's not a cyber squatting case, boy, is that rare, because usually it is. And the truth of the matter is, usually it is with UDRPs. 98% of the cases are pretty clear cut. Okay, so that case was buzzaldrin.com. The astronaut forgot to fucking renew it after that many years. He's probably handling himself, like David says. Now he's 96. But fortunately, there was no response. He got the name back, and that person out $35,500. Now, David, you found out that was $35,500. There was nowhere in the complaint that they mentioned that. I looked at it on Name Bio as well. But correct. So
I went to Name Bio
yeah.
and I found the information there. That's where it was.
Where was it?
On Name Bio.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, I don't know, that probably wouldn't have affected anything, but I wonder if a panelist thinks, geez, this person bought it for that amount, and there were some reasons that they spent that amount of money. Was it all just, bad reason because they wanted to infringe? Well, like, that person needed to really step up and say, we do this a lot. We buy names with a lot of traffic, a lot of backlinks, and here's what we do with them that is legitimate. It's a legitimate business to buy these names that drop, that have back, and we can't help the traffic that they're getting. It's targeted for a certain type of, they're coming for something, and we want to make sure that we can, maximize how do we use that traffic. Okay, anyway, so this person lost the name. Should have answered. I don't know how they would have answered to Dawn. They would have.
You know what?
Yeah.
I just noticed something. The complaint is Buzz Aldrin Enterprises Inc., and it owns a trademark. So it's not the individual it's suing, it's this corporation. The problem is it was registered in Florida and it's been canceled. It's no longer active. It says inactive status. So that's a problem. How can it make a claim for anything as an inactive corporation? How can it own an active trademark as an inactive corporation? So there's still hope for this domain owner. He could probably file an ACPA case and win on that ground.
Yeah. I mean,
Costs a little bit of money.
right. If there's no entity, I mean, this is different than there's no longer a trademark. You're just saying there's no longer this company who filed it. It's like saying,
Right.
yeah, not even in existence anymore. Um, well, interesting. Okay. So Buzz Aldrin got his name back. 96. This guy. All right. The third case we're going to. This one I thought was really interesting because I really like the panelist here. Consider him a friend. Charlie. It's Charles K. I don't even pronounce his last name. But anyway, so the domain in this third case, ingramselfpublishers.com. So the domain is ingramselfpublishers.com. It was registered just in December of 2025. Interesting because I see I mistyped Ingram Self Publisher, and I saw that was also registered, I think, by the same person in January of 2026. So these were recent registrations. But anyway, so this person registered ingramselfpublishers.com, and the complainant in this case is Ingram Industries, and there's so many companies named Ingram Industries. Some were doing, looks like, defense work and so on. But so the complainant in this case, it does have their hand in a lot of businesses, but basically they do publishing of books and so on. So they felt like we have a right to this name. So they filed the UDRP. In this case, the respondent did not answer. And that's why I thought it was very interesting, because I'm going to give it away. The panelist, Charlie, said, I'm going to deny this complaint. When this, there is a company, Ingram, that, publishes books. This guy had the name, and his name was Aiden Markham, the respondent out of Pakistan, who didn't respond, registered this ingramselfpublishers.com, and Charlie ruled in his favor. And I was reading through the complaint, the summary, and I thought he probably ruled in his favor because if you search Ingram publishing and book publishing, there's just so many websites that offer, I guess Ingram's the main publisher, but there's these self-help, how to get your book published by Ingram. That's what I took away from, because I saw, say, 3 or 4 websites that were all, here's how to get your book published through Ingram. Let Ingram help you get your book in stores and so on. So it's like a lot of companies. It reminds me, David, of that Cessna fucking thing where you got all these guys that are flight instructors or repair specific Cessna planes, and then you get the manufacturer coming after them, but yet they all have legitimate use and legitimate rights to it. So anyway, a lot of companies using Ingram publishing, self-publishing. If you search it, you'll be surprised. But it wasn't mentioned in this case. The respondent didn't bring it up. He didn't even answer. Yet Charlie ruled that, hey, you didn't, the complainant didn't clearly show us that you're the only person that uses the name Ingram in this space. And I thought that's weird. Basically, talk about, I don't know. I think it was a good decision because I love when the domain owner gets to keep his name. But David, why do you think Charlie ruled complaint denied when this guy really did have ingramselfpublishers.com, and the Ingram complainant, does publish books? You're on mute. You are on mute.
There are 88,000 plus people in the United States with the name Ingram, so it's not very distinctive. And there was no reason to believe that this respondent knew of the complainant when he registered the domain name. It's just a popular name for that type of thing. Um, I'm just going through the Ingram trademarks. There are 55 registered Ingram trademarks for a whole lot of different things. There's Ingram Industries for books and information about books. And the complainant in this case is um, Ingram Industries. So yes, so they're the trademark owner. But this guy is using Amazon. He's monetizing his site using Amazon. So basically, you fill in your information. He'll guide you to publish your book on Amazon. I guess he gets commission out of that. But he's not impersonating them. That's the difference. And I think the panelists didn't think that this was a problem because Ingram is not really distinctive. What do you think?
There was that at the top of the ingramselfpublishers.com page. He does have a disclaimer, and that always means something, to the panelists. It means something to attorneys in cases, basically. So you do have a disclaimer there. But if this would have been Don Osborne, the last panelist, David, with no response, do you think she would have transferred this name?
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm curious if there was something missing. And if I have a conversation with Charlie anytime soon, while this is the top of my mind, I'll ask him what, I think the decision was right because there's a ton of companies that are using it, Ingram, self-publishing, and so on, like I said. But I didn't see, without the respondent, making a case for themselves. To me, I would have thought, all right, so it does look like, is there fair use? The panelists don't like to do a lot of research. So if you do a lot of research, you realize a lot of companies are out there named Ingram in the publishing business or assisting people that want to use that Ingram Industries. So it's weird that, there are a lot of sites
It's true,
that,
though. If you go to
yeah.
If you go to Open Corporates, you'll see Ingram Beach Publishing, Ingram Publishing Company that went out of business in 1988, Ingram Publishing LLC out of Michigan, that's still active. So, and it was used in Australia. It's a common name. There was another Ingram Publishing out of Texas that's just recently out of business.
There's so
So I
many,
don't think that this is a distinctive name.
so many publishing companies named Ingram. I mean, I even recall it anyway. So in this case, the panelist denied the complaint. The Pakistani owner of Ingram Self-Publishers.com gets to keep the name, and like I said, I believe he registered the singular as well. But interesting, win without responding. The final case we have today, and if you have a question about domain disputes or any domain legal issues or anything you want to ask, raise your hand. Bring you up. We're almost done, and we're getting out of here early today. It's like getting out of class early. This last case, pretty simple. Steve Levy was the panelist on it, solo panelist. The domain was, well, there's two actually, AlexaBusiness.com and AlexaBusinessDirectory.com. Now, Amazon was the complainant. This person that owned or responded said, hey, I don't even own Alexa Business. Dan Foster was his name. He said, I have Alexa Business Directory, but my whole thing was a business directory, and it's basically a business directory so people can get found if you're, you advertise on social media or you're only on social media, or if you want to make sure that these voice, like Alexa, basically that these voice assistants make sure that your business is included when someone says, hey, find me a pizza shop. Okay, so this guy says, I didn't even own Alexa Business. I just own Alexa Business Directory. And the panelist in this case, Steve Levy, said, well, according to the complainant, it looks like there's some similar web pages, similar who is information. So we believe that you do own both of these sites, even though you're saying you weren't the owner or operator of Alexa Business, but you're admitting to owning Alexa Business Directory. They went ahead with this case. Since Amazon created, launched Alexa in 2014, it was easy for the panelists to say, listen, so you're familiar with Alexa, Amazon's Alexa. You registered this name in 2020, so it was at least 5-6 years ago. But just felt like you're trying to make or take advantage of their trademark and benefit from it. And I can't argue with him. I wish there would have been a better response by this owner to say, here's why. If it was a first name of Susan, if Amazon was using Susan as their thing, and then somebody named a business Susan, would that be common of enough name? And but anyway, David, this person that owns Alexa Business Directory, it was transferred away from them. Is there any defense they could have had to hold on to this name?
Yeah, it's like they're actually offering a service that describes, like the name describes the service they're offering. So it's kind of like a fair use Okie data offense, but it's the, what was it called? The Lost Mary decision. If that had been asserted, then there's a good chance the name would have been saved. I'm looking at the alexabusinessdirectory.com website and comparing it to alexabusiness.com, and they are very different sites. The color schemes are similar. They're both using the same color, same pastel blue, but other than that, the layout, the content is all different. And the Alexa Business Directory has a Los Angeles phone number. The person in the alexabusiness.com is based out of Delaware. So two different addresses, two different names, and different website qualities. I would say that they're not the same people, and there should have been two separate UDRP complaints. Unfortunately, the Alexa business guy didn't respond. Jason Franks, he would have probably had a chance at winning.
Yeah, there was. So there
That's
was.
my analysis.
It was a full. Yeah, it was a full response, and this gentleman that owned Alexa Business Directory just didn't satisfy Steve Levy, the panelist. So why did you select the name Alexa Business Directory? And if he would have said that's my wife's name or my daughter's name, and could prove that, it might have made a difference. And
No, not in this case. In this case at all, because the website actually promotes ranking your business on Alexa, which is an Amazon product, where you have Alexa at home. You say, "Find me some running shoes," and or whatever. Or give me a pizza. It will rank a local business for that service, and Amazon doesn't like that if you're using their name. But
well,
there is a
I thought
defense.
they were
It's a
saying
nominal
on
fair use.
any voice assistants they weren't targeting Alexa. Of course, we all know that's a prominent voice assistant, Alexa, but they didn't mention Amazon's Alexa other than just using the name on the website, do they? I was looking at the other one, alexabusiness.com,
I
but
think the one that says alexabusiness.com even mentions Siri. So Siri's with Apple. But on the Alexa Business website, it says Alexa is a registered trademark of Amazon Technologies, used here solely to indicate compatibility with voice assistant platforms. We are not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by Amazon Technologies. So it's an independent marketing agency, a directory platform. And it's also, they have a Google partner badge on there. So I would say that alexabusiness.com was more legitimate than alexabusinessdirectory.com.
yeah, I see on Alexa Business Directory, it says at the bottom, of course, that disclaimer you just made, Alexa Business. It doesn't say directory. It already confuses you there, but it knows you're going to be thinking of Amazon's Alexa. That's why they have that disclaimer and says, we're not related. All right. Well, anyway, that was a transfer away. Both names, Alexa Business and Alexa Business Directory, were transferred away, and that person even responded. But you really have to have, when they say legitimate, true legitimate use of the name. Anybody, we got some time, 40 minutes in, knocked out our cases today. Anybody have any domain dispute questions? Any topic they want to bring up? Otherwise, we'll shut it down, but we got another 10, 20 minutes. Danny, you working on anything? Any legal issues anybody come up with? Anybody receive any cease and desist lately? Any UDRPs? I know Arif mentioned that he got
I
a
think
UDRP.
Arif has something going on, but is he here in the audience today? I don't think so.
No, yeah, I mean,
No.
I noticed, and I know he didn't mention the domain name. I know what it is. I was going to say, I did see that in his case, he has a 3-member panel that's deciding the case. And matter of fact, Igor's on that panel from what I saw. Wondering, I was going to ask Arif, did he, from what I remember, there was only a single member panelist. And then I don't think Arif planned on getting a 3-member panel to pay the additional amount. And then,
Yeah, he did. He actually asked me for some names, and I said, well, I need to know what the case is about so I can give you the right names. Because it's not just the panelists, but how they rule on certain issues. And that is a critical thing. So you really need to analyze and know your panelists.
yeah, and you can only do so much there, right? I mean, strike a couple panelists. I mean, and then select the ones that you hope are available. But okay, so fantastic. So he wanted that name enough to hire a 3-member panel, and I said, I felt like it was a coin flip on his UDRP just because of history that I've seen with similar type of UDRPs and names like that and so on. But yeah, I wish him the best. And there was another. What else? There was well, we're working on a couple that we've already submitted the answers to. Sure, hoping for positive outcomes there too. Anybody have a question or want to chat about anything? I'll still give you some time. I
Well, I have a question for you, Jack. Sorry, Todd.
Yeah.
What would you have put on buzzaldrin.com? If you had somehow won that auction, how would you develop that? Would you do it off fan sites? Would you use NASA content? What would you put on there?
Well, I would immediately put, we're not related to Buzz Aldrin. You know, even if I bought it for $100, I would have said this is an independent site. We're no longer related, but I would have known the traffic is coming from this guy had his website for 25 years. Just like if you picked up, you know, a famous website. I used to own SnoopDogg.com before Snoop did, and when it was getting traffic, Tupac.com, I'd point them to ABC Productions because I had a song that Snoop did on my movie, and I was pointing it right there saying, hey, you can buy the single. I released the single, Story to Tell by Snoop and Corrupt. Come here. And then, I know I jumped topics, but anyway, then his record label was Priority Records at the time, way back in the day. And it got bought by Capitol Records, and then Capitol sends me a letter saying, hey, we want the domain name or we're going to sue you. So I'm like, you're not getting the domain name. I'll transfer it to Snoop. And I did exactly that. How I got it was he didn't want to pay one of his web designers a few $1,000 a few years earlier, or in 1999. And I said, well, I want the name. I don't want them holding it hostage because I did this film and I wanted to use it. But back then artists weren't, didn't care about it. But the bottom line is, made sure to say this is not, even though I'm not affiliated with Snoop Dogg, we're an independent, it was risky because you're really trying to make, I was using his likeness and using his name and then trying to sell music, which I owned. But at that point, they just didn't care. But so what I would do with Buzz Aldrin is put, this is a website that is about astronauts. Specifically, this particular astronaut is a legend, American legend, and we're not affiliated with him or any of the previous sites. And still, I think if you're that clear with a personal name, that's your best bet. Many times you want to make sure there's no commercial activity. So if you're trying to make money off of sponsors or even news about space travel, and then you're trying to sell sponsorships, as soon as you've moved over to the commercial activity on it, now you're running a bigger risk. But David, if I was like dying to keep it, I guess I would just make it an information site, put up disclaimers, don't do anything that raises money. But that's who wants to do that? But that's really the best way to keep a name that especially a personal name that somebody else is
You
well
could
known for.
sell Buzz Aldrin memorabilia that's listed on Amazon that he's approved of, because that's fair use.
Well, we saw that a couple weeks ago, right? The person that you can actually, what if you're only selling Buzz Aldrin photos? And I could certainly do things like that. I probably sell Buzz Aldrin photos at on ABC Productions on eBay. But if you had just an eBay store that was Buzz Aldrin, for example, and you only sold authentic, no counterfeit bullshit, but only authentic stuff that maybe you picked up, collectibles that you've collected over the years, that would be fair use. You're only selling Buzz Aldrin memorabilia. It's all legitimate memorabilia, and it'd be great if you had COAs, to back up your claim. But still, some people just don't understand that. I mean, some even panelists think, but are you making money? And then if you're sort of finding some loopholes, like using their likeness when you're not supposed to. So sometimes you can use their likeness and you're not supposed to because you're selling an authentic shirt that he wore or a jacket. In California, you got to be real careful because you might have rights to resell that product, but then you can't, start using their likeness or even their picture of them in that jacket if you don't own that photo. So then, somebody can come in and say it's a copyright infringement. But anyway, I like as soon as you start making money off somebody else's name or likeness in California, you are all subject to state laws that they really protect celebrities and stuff like that. But yeah, well, once again, anybody want to ask something to David? Ask me a question. Who cuts my hair? I do it myself. Um,
Yeah, so this yeah, he could have cited a case from 2019, actually 2025, most recently. There was one with Miratech. They actually won this one. Um, the domain name was Ideatech, and he bought it on the auction, and he wanted money for it. And this company was also called Ideatech, dropped it, and they wanted it back. The panel said, no, it doesn't work like that. If you dropped it, it's not, you don't have a presumptive right to like get it on a UDRP. And they cited a couple of decisions from before. So you can go ahead and use drop catch services. Um, so this was dispute number 2025-2648 involving Ideatech, and it cited Photomaton versus domains by proxy from 2022. So it's a common thing where people are buying these names on the auctions, and it's an open public auction. Buzz Aldrin could have bid on his own name for 35,000. Instead, his business decided to get a discount on it through a UDRP. That I find is unethical, especially when a big law firm does it. They should know better.
yeah, we don't know if he knew that it dropped until someone else had it. Maybe he did. Maybe they saw that it was locked up. I mean, there's definitely reasons why you would catch it before the auction was over because you're like, how come my site's not, resolving? Um, but chances are, I mean, I don't know what kind of team he has, but if it basically went through the whole motion and then he didn't have a chance to bid on it, 35,000, probably wouldn't have anyway. But then his only recourse is, well, that's what the UDRP is for. Try to go get it that way, and it worked. He did get it. He got lucky. The no answer. Don Osborne was the panelist. Somebody spending 35,000. That's the most I've seen since we've been doing this, where someone has spent that much on a name and didn't answer. Because we've seen cases where people have spent 200,000 on a 3-letter, answered and lost, but not something like this where somebody just spent 35,000 in a GoDaddy expired auction. Well, I was thinking, yeah, next week there's I've seen some recent cases too, some transfers that were really surprising to me. I might include some of those cases next week. But David, what have you been working on? Anything people can reach out to you if they need your services for trademark applications? What else can people reach out to you for? What services you
So
provide?
I'm building an application that will search all the trademark databases to see what you can use your domain name for legitimately without infringing anybody's trademark. Because it's an awful lot of work to clear each one of your domain names, across all these different trademark databases. And before you start building, you want to like clear it. And that, who's going to spend $100,000 on it? Global clearance search? Nobody. So I think that tool is necessary. Um, that's what I've been building. Last on Saturday I built a video game, a new version of Candy Crush that's better for older people who don't want all the jarring, lights and music or sounds. Um, yeah, so I've been working on building sites. Replit had a really good competition over the weekend. It was free all day on Saturdays, so just pump in your ideas and you build whatever. And all these new AI companies are offering free days where you can just get your feet wet and learn how to use their system and see if you like it.
So you've used Replit. Who else have you used?
I use Bolt. I prefer actually Claude Code and Gemini. Gemini is good for ideating. Perplexity is good for doing deep research, and so is Gemini for that. But Claude Code is really good for the actual code to refine it, make sure it works. Replit has an agent called Agent 4, and it's not even like Claude or anything. It's just a basic agent, but it has learned how to build sites because a lot of people are building the same kind of sites, and it double checks its work and verifies that it's all working. The problem with Replit is that you're married to their platform forever until you like redo your website from another platform because you cannot take out your code. You can back it up to um, GitHub if you pay, but if you don't pay, you can't do anything. You just like the files are all there. It's like 1,000 files. You're never going to replicate it on your own. And it's not even compatible with normal hosting. So, well, at
Yeah,
least with Gemini and Claude, you can build in PHP and use regular hosting, use your own databases. You can use Supabase if you really need security, but MariaDB or NoSQL is great for the average website.
yeah. David, I integrate Jot forms in a lot of the sites I've been building, and I mostly use Claude Code as well. But are you using Replit to help you build forms like your contact pages and so on? And does it seem to be working smoothly when you're putting forms on your pages using these AI, you know, vibe code tools?
I use Gemini for forms, PHP forms, and it works really well. It strips out any type of spam or malicious code. And if there's also honeypot there, so if it's just an automated thing, it'll stop it, so I won't get inundated with emails or entries in my database. So Gemini is great for that.
Yeah, quick recap. I wanted to say, you guys know I was at Dominion last week, and I really don't want to shout out people, but Larry, I wanted to say I missed you there. Saw Jeff. I told Jeff, tell your dad I want to get him in a chokehold still. For what reason, Larry? I don't know. I just had a good time when we were at the ICA event laughing, but definitely missed you there. Um, look forward to the next time. But yeah, for those who didn't make Dominion conference, um, matter of fact, Paul, I spent a lot of time with Paul, who's in the audience here. Really enjoyed it. There's a lot of legal things that I'm going to talk with Jeff, my partner, about, Jeff Neuman. I like, I think more of the risk on, tokenizing your names. I mean, basically the DOMA protocol is from the token buyers, the investors that are, we shouldn't call them investors because really they consider them owners, but the token holders. If you're a domain owner and you put a name on the protocol, I think it's really almost like somebody wants to issue an NFT on your domain name. It's really going to be those people that are buying the NFT, not you, as you're sort of the issuer. I say that because as the more I look at tokenizing, or basically putting a whole portfolio, a bucket of names, as they say, on the protocol, I'm, there's really a limited, I believe, limited risk on the domain owner. You can offer 5% of your name, you can offer 20% of your name to others. But I'll finish by saying there's a lot of questions about it, but just think of it as DOMA owning 20% of your name. If you're somebody who is giving up, like me, I might tokenize a name, give up 20% of the ownership. I don't need to worry about all these different token holders or all these other people that are involved. I can just look at it as DOMA is taking 20% of my name. I'm maintaining 80% of the name. The catch that a lot of people, most are aware of, but is that you need to transfer your name to the DOMA registrar. That's, I call it the D3 registrar, Interstellar. In that way, they know you don't just sell the name, not pay those token holders, and go your own way. So it gives the DOMA protocol a little control over the names that are on their blockchain. But overall, just what a great event it was. And Fred and the D3 team put on a first class event. It was, much better food than we say that was at ICA. And it really a lot of, obviously great time visiting with a lot of key people in the space. And we'll say David Amar, he put a name on there with Drew Rosner, his boner.com. Braden went live with the domain when we were there, alert.ai, and seemed to be a lot of interest in that. But then again, we were promoting it right then. And then Monty Khan, he also has a name on the platform, investors.xyz. You can, what you think of the names is one thing, but I will say, there's definitely, these guys have big portfolios. They've had, each of them have had $1 million names, and they were willing to, put a name on there, and, not their whole portfolio, but definitely, experience it. Hey, Paul, nice to have you on stage. What's going on?
What's going on, Todd? No, not much, man. I'm just going to be real quick. I had a great time hanging out with you last couple of days, and going 0 for 6 on the sports bets. That was rough, but hanging out with you made it a little bit sweeter, and kind of forgot about all that pain. But yeah, Doma, great show. I mean, put on a great event for a couple of days over there. I did tokenize one of my names, and I'm waiting for, I think it's 14 days is what the wait period is before it actually launches. So, of course, I have still a lot of questions in terms of what happens, if the domain owner decides to do something with their name in terms of build a business and so forth. That is still, the answers were not, to me, wasn't, everything else was fantastic. I mean, even tokenizing the name opens up so much liquidity. Watching them do it, the white glove service that they offered us, having a one-on-one 30-minute meeting, that, that's kind of needed. I mean, because what they're doing is they're actually using two different platforms, and to me that was confusing. They're using one as a registrar, which is Interstellar, so you kind of have to go back and forth with that, make sure your name is on the registrar, which makes sense. I mean, if you're going to tokenize a name, they're going to want to have control over the name if they're offering share, if all the shares are out there. So that provides a little bit of security to me. But the secondary question is, what happens if the domain owner decides to build a business on there? And the answer that was given to me was, it's up to the domain owner how they want to distribute those, whatever they want to call it, dividends or the revenue that's been generated from the domain. I wish there was a little more clarity on that part, and it just wasn't so vague. But even the fact that there is a little bit of vagueness there, that opens up a lot of opportunities in my mind in terms of, hey, you can just launch a business, start generating revenue, and then just give it those out as dividends and distributions. Everything is, they've built the entire platform. So each one of your domain names kind of acts like a stock ticker. Is that kind of like your understanding? Or like, you know, it pairs with, like on Sushi Swap and so forth. Eventually, the idea is that you're going to be able to just swap shares on there. You can go to, you know, like any one of these DeFi protocols, and you can trade USDC for shares. So that right there, the way that they explained it to me, that, you know, made a lot more sense actually sitting in front of a computer, walking through it and everything. But yeah, had a great couple of days, and I'm looking forward to the 14-day waiting period to have my domain actually launch. So I put a valuation of $5,000 on my domain. 45% is what I'm willing to, you know, give out ownership, and I maintain 55% of it. So that's just one, and then I'll probably move on with 2 and 3 once the first one is launched. But yeah.
Well, Paul, thanks for sharing. I wanted to say so about building on one of these names that's tokenized. The big issue is when you, like what you did, you said this is a $5,000 buy it now. So that's a key number that you agree to with the platform to go in. So like what Monty did, 17,900 was his number, that this buy it now price for investors.xyz. Braden was a $500,000, I believe, for alert.ai. And Richard Lau, 2 million for rides.com. The reason why that buy it now number is important, and there's also another number that's important, and that's your sort of your wholesale price that you're letting people initially start buying in at, because that buy it now price, that's what the, you know, these token owners, these people that are getting involved buying, you know, whatever percentage, 5%, 20. Paul said he's going to be offering 45% of the name. They're coming in thinking, okay, I'm going to buy at this valuation because the owner says we're going to sell it at $5,000 at this buy it now price. And they have to believe that's reasonable. Like, okay, so Richard says we're going to sell rides.com at 2 million. That figure is important because later on, if you as the owner sell for less, it may be coming out of your pocket. Those you're still needing to square up with the token holders, this minority group of owners at that $2 million price. Now that said, Paul, you were talking about, Chad and I were saying, hey, on paynow.com, we started this thing valued at, a few $100,000. Well, really, just the name we felt was worth at least that. Well, we know we've had offers on it. Well, then as we start building a company around it, we're like, okay, well, the valuation's increased to 2 million. We believe with what we've done so far and the money that we've spent, and the time we've spent, and the partnerships we're looking for, we believe this company, PayNow, is worth 6 million today. So that's if somebody wanted to buy it completely from us. I bring that up because if we tokenized PayNow and we sold off 20% of it and we continue to build, well, once we decide here's the buy it now price on PayNow, 6 million, which people might think, anyway, 6 million. If we built it and we started generating revenue of 10,000, 100,000 per month, well, you can't, that buy it now price is fixed. Basically, it made me think it's a reason why if you are planning on building on a domain name, you want to consider, the future value of that name and, make sure your buy it now price reflects that. Because if you say the buy it now price is 50,000 and you've been building on a name and now it's generating, a lot of revenue, somebody probably coming, generating $10,000 a month, and you have a buy it now price of 50,000. Someone's going to come in there and, probably buy that name. Obviously, I guess, so you, that buy it now price that you put on your name is very important. And, I say I'll finish. Well, if Doma recommends, if you got a buy it now price of 5,000, like you do on a name, you need to offer it on GoDaddy for, I don't know, 6,500 to make sure After commissions, there is at least a net of 5,000. So now you can give DOMA the 45% so they can distribute to the token holders. And then, of course, you hold on to 55%. I think on Thursday's show, Josh and I do a show every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on X. People calling me. We're going to talk a little bit about this. I know Josh is like, yeah, if he's not involved in it, he's like, I don't want to talk about it. But we'll spend a little bit of time talking about, can you make money as a domain investor? I recommend people, if it's a name that you in your portfolio you don't think is very valuable, but yet may be attractive to the Web3, the crypto, the blockchain type sector, those types of, anybody that invests in meme coins, that's who Doma Protocol is really looking to attract as traders. And Paul, you were talking swapping back and forth. We want, I want Web3 investors, meme coin investors, NFT investors and traders, those types of folks come in and say, hey, better than just trading these JPEGs, let's go ahead and trade these fractional shares of domain names. And if it's a valuable domain name behind it, well, even if it's priced, it's got a real high buy it now price. Still, to me, that's better than just trading a JPEG. But I would then look at the next step. What are good names on the platform that are valued correctly? And Samit brought up a good point the other day. Is it's a great way to get your name in front of, these sort of a different market. Web3 investors, like I said, crypto holders, investors, NFT connoisseurs. But the point is, you can go ahead and take your name over there, like Paul did, offer it for 5,000, buy it now. If it's in front of the right audience, someone may just come in and say, not only do I want to buy, these tokens in it, I'm just going to buy it outright. So there's different strategies, and I think
Yeah, and just one more thing I've been thinking about as well, because once you transfer your name over into Interstellar, you change your name servers over. Well, what happens then is you're kind of pointing over your domain name points over to the actual the chart where your domain and your ticker is. Your domain basically turns into a dollar sign, whatever your domain name is, and then it pairs up with with all these different currencies. You can pair it up with Solana or USDC or whatnot, and then you can just do the swap that way. But yeah, that was my thought process. Is what about parking then? Can you also, what about if your domain's listed on Atom and these other sites, and listed for, let's say it's $5,000, I listed for 10,000, and it sells over there? Do I just, just take care of it on this end, where make everything whole on this end? That also is a little bit confusing, because like for Sea for example, I can still list my names on Sea, and it doesn't have to be pointed to their name servers. So, I'm curious what people are going to be doing moving forward, as we move away from, we discussed this a little bit at the show, where parking is kind of dying. Maybe everyone's just going to have their, domains as like these little ticker symbols, and you go on there and this is what the price is today. I've invested in this, the MJ opportunity with Rally Road. It's very similar to that, except that's not on a it's not on a blockchain. It's just on their internal Excel spreadsheet. But that's gone up. It started at 20, went to $25. Could have exited. It's back down to $20 now. So it's very similar to that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering like how people are going to be using this. Will they be parking their names, similar to as they are right now, or will they actually just be using their domain name as a chart that's just going to be displaying every day and every second what the price of their domain is going to be? So that's an interesting thing to talk about as well on Thursday.
They're similar to Rally Road, that we basically want there to be an aftermarket, and that's what Rally Road tried to provide, and that's what Doma's trying to provide. Hey, Larry, it's great to have you here on stage. Missed you last week.
Hey,
Saw Jeff.
hey, Todd. Yeah,
What's going
yeah,
on?
yeah. I wanted to first of all thank you. I heard you shout it out a minute ago. Unfortunately, was not able to attend. But all wanted to thank you personally, because I know you made Jeff feel very welcome, and just wanted to thank you for that. I'm listening. to this with interest because I'm interested in knowing what's going on and learning about Doma. And two things you'd mentioned, and I just want to ask you and see if you got an answer, so just so I understand. So let's say you have that buy it now price of 5,000. You put it on Adam not for 6,500 or whatever to make the fees, so it's 5,000, but you put it on Adam for 10,000. It sells for 10,000. Is the extra funds distributed at 10,000 or whatever the net is, or is it distributed based on that 5,000 price to that 20%?
Yeah,
If
it's
20% is done.
distributed on the higher price. So the token holders benefit if you sell it for more, but yet it
Okay.
can hurt you if you sell it for less. And
Well, that,
Larry, like what Paul was saying,
right.
I would answer his question. If you sell it anywhere, Doma is basically like, all right, you sold it. Now, of course, you can't do anything with it because we got to give you the EPP code. We're the admin over at Interstellar. So,
Mhm.
what did you sell it for? And let's go ahead and send us our share, which their share
Mhm.
is whatever you've sold to the token holders. So that could be
Okay.
5%, 20%,
The
45%.
the second question I have, which is really more important, and you covered it a lot in terms of, yes, let's say you did a buy it now price. I think you mentioned 50,000 on something, and but you're working on it, and you start getting income. And I think one of the things you mentioned is, yeah, it makes sense. It's making $10,000 a month income. Somebody say, damn, let me just buy it for 50, which makes sense. Uh, my question is, you basically said, let's say you're going to try and build this up. So instead of at 50,000, we put it up for 500,000. Now comes the time you tried to build it, it didn't work. You have a $500,000 price on it. You can't sell it for less, it sounds like, than 500,000 because you'd owe money to your investors because you'd put that $500,000 price on it. Is that correct?
Well, you are right, but you can sell it for less because Larry, let's say you have it for 500,000, you've sold off
Mhm.
20% of it. So the
Right.
400,000 is
Mhm.
you've locked into that. You sold off $100,000 worth of this thing, and
Mhm.
now you sell the name for 200,000 and less a commission of 50, we'll say. So now you got a buck 50. Okay, so out of that 150, you're really only going to be able to keep 50,000 even though you still owned 80% of the name because
Okay.
20%. So they're trying to insulate. Now this is what was explained to me. They're trying to insulate
Mhm.
the token holders that if somebody sells, it sells for a lot less, they're not necessarily hurt. Now, in also Doma has, some connection there, right? Because what if you sold for 50,000 and it
Mhm.
was listed at 500,000? Well,
Mhm.
then they don't have to give the EPP code. They could say, I guess they could step in and say, no, there's going to be no transfer here. I mean, so it's really, they do have control when it's over at their registrar. They're saying you as the domain owner, you can,
Right.
nothing changes for you. And Larry, if
Mhm.
you, an LTO, okay, so somebody
Mhm.
comes in and wants to lease it, it's really just going to fall out as any other lease. I own 80%
Mhm.
of the name. You owe 20. Hey, Larry, I know we tried to sell this for 200,000. Somebody ended up, giving us 20,000 down. They're going to pay us 10,000 bucks a month till it's paid off. You're going to get your 20% distribution of the original of the down payment
Mhm.
plus of all the
Mhm.
other payments. So they're really trying to just pass it through as though
Okay.
nothing's off limits. You can still offer at least to
What?
own.
Mhm.
The,
Mhm.
the the main key
What?
here, what people don't really
Mhm.
get is there's two numbers. There's that buy it now number that you can really pick
Mhm.
anything like Richard did rides.com at 2 million, and then people are buying in at what 400,000. In what's really hard to, I think it is difficult to understand is you start buying in at 400,000 this valuation. So we're buying in the 20% of the name, and this was the Richard's name at
Mhm.
400,000. As we start buying those tokens, they call it the bonding curve, but basically it's
Mhm.
supply and demand. So now we're
Mhm.
buying these tokens, they're valued now at the name's at a $400,000 valuation. As we start buying them, well, it starts moving up to 420, 440. So now if maybe 10% of the name is sold, there's still 10% in the float, is what I call it, because I'm like an old school stockbroker. So there's still, but as people are buying, that bonding curve sends the price higher and higher. And then
Hmm.
as they, once all 20% is
Hmm.
sold and now it's in the aftermarket, sort of in the public, that means it's graduated. And now that it's graduated, the liquidity pool opens up, and now, like Monty did with his, he went
Hmm.
in and to basically withdrew some of the funds. So now you can start withdrawing. Basically, you can sell
Right.
your tokens that you have, and they'll convert them to USDC for you. But
Hmm.
the catch with that is when you start selling, it can make
Hmm.
the price of the token go down. So
No.
it's, I mean, there's really, I say a
Now,
lot to it, but
is there a period where, if let's say you're the domain owner, you put it on, and only a few people buy, are you locked in, or does a certain amount of sale have to occur before is a certain amount of sale have to occur for you to be able to, or are you able to pull the name off if you don't get your minimum or your 20%?
if I think with, if it takes a year and if it doesn't hit that, if it doesn't graduate, what they call, then you can
Hmm.
take it down. But yeah, no, there's a lot of the names that they haven't had enough activity, so they haven't graduated.
Sure.
So yeah, no liquidity pool opens up. You can't
Hmm.
take any money out of there.
Hmm.
So you really are locked in for that amount of time, meaning it's not liquid. No, there hasn't been a lot of activity. And that's why,
Hmm.
Larry, the key, what they did, last week, is you want the promotion around it. It's like I was saying, somebody could
Sure.
make a
Yeah.
good movie. If there's no promotion, the shitty movie could do better if people marketed the
Oh,
crappy
without a
movie.
doubt.
So you
Oh,
really need the
without a
marketing.
doubt.
And right now,
Yeah.
go
Hmm.
ahead.
Right. No, I was about to say, is there a minimum percentage that you could offer on a name?
I think, I mean, I know there wasn't a minimum, but I certainly haven't seen one at 1%. I think some people have offered just 5% or just 10%. I think
Okay.
I think what I'm going to do, and listen, so Chad and I, we got portfolios. We're going to try to launch a domain fund just a standard way, not through DOMA. And then we thought, why
Mm.
don't we take a look and see if we want to put a bucket of names on their protocol? Because I just felt like more people would be, there's more activity in a fund of names. So
Mhm.
there's one will sell out of all these 4-letter, for example. We got 100 of them in there. People buy the token. They don't have to wait till that one domain sells. We got one of them sold for 8,000. So we basically have some activity in the fund.
Mhm.
That said, they're getting ready to launch buckets of domain names, and they're going to be promoting some, and that's really where you want to be with the promotion. What I'm going to do now,
Interesting.
though I've given it some thought, is I'm going to find names that I believe are attractive to Web3 people with coin in them, chain in them, on chain,
Mhm.
something that's attractive in that, to that audience, and just do a single name at first and get
Mhm.
familiar with the system, and then make decisions after that. But really, just firsthand, be able to use the dashboard. I think there
Mhm.
is something there. It's more of, if these like NFT buyers or these meme coin investors want to trade fractions of domain names, I'm all about it. But can D3 really attract that big of a, aftermarket? Can they attract
Mhm.
enough traders and then to use their protocol? So I mean, it's like,
Exactly.
I think that's the
Exactly. Yeah.
stretch. But
Yeah. Well,
now's the year to
I.
do it,
Mhm.
because now, Fred raised the money. I mean, I'm just fucking up front. He raised the money. They're spending it now on the marketing and on, you know, getting it out there. So this is the
Mhm.
time to do it. And I don't think there's much risk with the
Mhm.
domain investors. We
Well,
have a ton of names. Just try it with
mhm.
a name that
That-
you don't care about, like Braden did.
yeah, that's why I was asking what happens if you don't get the percentage that you're asking for. If it sounds to me like it's a year minimum, and if they have a year to do it, it's interesting. Well, I appreciate what you do, and unfortunately, I got to go sell some names. So
Yeah. Hey, thanks for
thank
dropping in. So I'll talk with
you.
you, I know here in the
Sure.
future, but take care, Larry, and
Thanks, Todd.
everyone.
Appreciate it.
You got it. Hey, everybody, thanks for sticking around. On Thursday, once again, Josh and I are going to do the DNX show, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got a lot to catch up on this week. So join us this Thursday. Until then, take care of yourself wherever you're at. Talk with you soon.